Chapter 191. Dinner is served. Once everything was ready, Li Hao called for Feng to join them at the table. Now that Feng had revealed himself and had been noticed by Li Hongzhuang, there was no need for him to hide his presence on a daily basis as long as his identity remained concealed. The few of them gathered around the firewood, leisurely eating and drinking. Feng busied himself with eating and drinking, savoring grilled meat and wine. Li Hao passed him a flatbread, stuffed with grilled meat. Feng found it refreshingly new, took a couple of bites, and couldn't help but praise it. As Feng was enjoying his meal, Li Hao casually took back his wine bottle and took a couple of sips himself, feeling a sense of contentment, realizing what happened. Feng shot him a glare and snatched the wine bottle back, his wine running low. Seeing Li Hao interact so casually and intimately with this elder, Li Hongzhuang and Li He found the young man even more enigmatic. After they finished eating and drinking, Feng bopping patted his buttocks and marched out of the courtyard, disappearing without a trace. Looking utterly carefree, watching Feng leave, Li Hao let out a quiet sigh, knowing that the old man feared staying in the courtyard for too long. Afraid that his identity would be recognized by Li Hongzhuang and others and affect him, hence he chose to sit alone among the mountain peaks and branches, companioned by the natural wind. Feeling a twinge of guilt, Li Hao stood up to take care of the demon corpses. He planned to brew a good jar of wine for the old man. After sorting through, Li Hao cut several good pieces from the corpses of a few immortal great demons, then returned to the courtyard to start brewing. Song Choma was sleeping in a side room in the courtyard, yawning and looking utterly bored. Occasionally, her gaze would fall on the figure bustling about with daily chores in the courtyard, her lips curving up slightly, amused by the sight. She had come today to deliver swordsmanship scrolls, the peerless technique of Tan Palace, which the young man had casually tucked away into his embrace. She had observed that since he got the scrolls, Li Hao hadn't looked at them a second time. The world's supreme cultivation techniques and the splendor of divine general mansion seemed less important to the young man than the mortal world's simple joys found by the stove. Truly an intriguing lad. It wasn't until the evening that Li Hao finished setting all the wine jars properly, burying them in the cellar behind the little courtyard to ferment. Bathed in the rosy glow of the sunset, Li Hao finally found the leisure to sit down on a wooden armchair he had made himself in the fenced courtyard, swaying gently. He took out the cultivation technique from his bosom and slowly began to read it. Taiji Qiankuan sword, yin and yang joining. Li Hao flipped through the pages. When he finished the last one, a prompt appeared before his eyes. He had grasped the basics immediately. Li Hao put away the scrolls and leaned back in his chair, closing his eyes to ponder. As the swordsmanship entered his mind, a flood of information came pouring in. The sword intent and core essence of the technique unfolded as he speculated and understood. Like unraveling a silk cocoon, what is Taiji? It is greater than great by just a bit. What is great? Heaven and earth. All things under heaven follow a Tao. The states of mind and Tao I've comprehended aren't yet profound enough. These sword techniques and cultivation techniques seem to share something in common if they could be integrated. Perhaps a technique that encompasses everything could be created. Li Hao had a moment of enlightenment. Now in the heavenly human realm, by integrating into the gateway of heaven, his spirit and form had become one, placing him a half step beyond the ordinary. His thoughts were no longer confined to the techniques themselves. He could glimpse the mysteries of all worldly techniques without following their strict forms. His Grandmaster journey was about embracing all things, but now Li Hao felt as though he was only taking initial steps on this path. If he could truly reach the end, his Grandmaster journey would be at its peak. What kind of sights would he see at that time? Li Hao's thoughts drifted for a moment, then he smiled lightly. Letting things take their natural course was best, just like his Grandmaster's heart, achieving perfection naturally. The world's myriad things do not require deliberate pursuit. Just as the sun shining over the earth isn't intentional, but a cycle of nature. To covet that bit of light and chase after the sun is like Kwafu chasing the sun, ending only in exhaustion and death. The sun's warmth is inviting, but it cannot be stared at directly. The cold moon, however, can illuminate through the ages. No need to cling to just one aspect of nature. The world is full of charm and grace. As with heaven and earth, this is true of humans and techniques. Li Hao felt his state of mind had improved a touch more, the cultivation techniques in his mind subtly changing, yet far from that ultimate Grandmaster peak. With a slight smile, he didn't dwell on it, but summoned his drawing board and brush. Then his divine soul ascended. Looking at the pile of demon corpses in the distance, he sketched casually, his strokes capturing the essence. Though these demons were dead, portraying their corpses still offered valuable painting experience. As Li Hao casually sketched one drawing after another, His painting experience points rapidly increased, getting closer to the 6th stage. 2 days flew by. In these past 2 days, the quietude outside the fenced courtyard was exceptional and no demons appeared. The young man inside happily enjoyed the tranquility, creating over 1,000 drawings. He depicted each demon's corpse more than 10 times, nearly exhausting the available experience. His art of painting advanced smoothly to the 6th stage, earning him a skill point. The experience needed to advance from the 6th to the 7th stage was 100,000 points. He needed to accumulate 100,000 more to reach the bottleneck at the 6th stage. Only with a spiritual awakening in painting could he upgrade to the 7th stage. Spiritual awakening, when will I achieve that? Mumbled Li Hao, feeling that the clues were still elusive. He stopped drawing and continued to compile the cultivation techniques. He methodically recorded those cultivation techniques which he had extrapolated and improved. At noon, smoke curled up from the kitchen in the fenced courtyard, and a line of riders swiftly approached the camp outside. Feng Bopping seemed to sense something, his eyes shifting slightly, and with a flicker, he disappeared from beside the fire where the meat was almost ready. Chapter 192. Everyone was already accustomed to his sudden appearances and disappearances and didn't pay him much attention, focusing instead on the new arrival outside the courtyard. Li Hongzhuang took a close look and couldn't help but be slightly stunned. Chu Jiuyue? She recognized the visitor. It was he who had come to deliver the imperial edict in person when her father had received orders during her childhood. As Chu Jiuyue rode into the frontier pass and saw the devastation as well as the pockmarked and cratered ground, his eyes also couldn't help but grow more solemn. The soil here was reddish-brown, as if it had been soaked with countless fresh bloodstains. He looked out and quickly spotted the chaotic encampment, with many tents torn and heaped together. On the other side, however, was a dark mass, shockingly a mound-like pile of demon corpses, some of which were already showing signs of decay. He smelled the stench of blood and decay. His expression slightly worsened. But he quickly regained his composure, his gaze settling on the center of the camp, where surprise briefly flashed through his eyes. In contrast to the surrounding devastation and piles of corpses, at the center of the camp was a picturesque fenced courtyard. Inside the small courtyard, smoke curled up from cooking fires, like that of a farmhouse. But how could there be a farmhouse at the border pass? He rode forward, followed by several court guards. Arriving at the front of the fenced courtyard, Chu Jiuyue clearly saw the scene inside. His gaze briefly meeting Song Choma, who was sitting before the firewood, the latter's eyes indifferent, without much reaction. Chu Jiuyue noticed Li Hao and Li Hongzhuang on the other side and suddenly understood why the ambience was so tranquil. It turned out the great demon king was in charge here. He felt somewhat surprised. Tan Palace's principle of keeping to itself seemed to have been broken this time. Dismounting from his horse, Chu Jiuyue entered the courtyard. The imperial edict of Emperor Yu has arrived, inviting Count Li Hao to receive the decree. Chu Jiuyue announced softly. Li Hao also noticed this familiar figure and immediately dusted off the flour on his hands, stepping forward with a slight bow. Chu Gonggong, it's been a long time. Is young Master Li faring well? Chu Jiuyue asked with a smile. Li Hao frowned slightly and nodded. Everything is well. Emperor Yu is grateful for the Count's bravery in going to the frontier to guard the pass and has specially bestowed a precious sword. Please accept it, Chu Jiuyue said simply. There were no bystanders here, so he didn't need to speak too grandly. Li Hao, somewhat surprised by the dark golden sword presented to him, still accepted it with both hands. Thank you, Your Majesty Emperor Yu, and thank you, Chu Gonggong. There's no need to thank me, I'm just the messenger, Chu Jiuyue replied with a smile, then added immediately, His Majesty has instructed that should the Count wish, he may go to Dayu State at any time to study at the outer palace of Gan Tao Palace and listen to the sage's teachings. Upon hearing this, both Li Hongzhuang and Li He stood up, looking at Li Hao with shocked faces. So the young master was held in such high esteem by Emperor Yu? To cultivate in Gan Tao Palace was a privilege historically reserved only for royal progeny. Moreover, even among the royal progeny, competition was fierce and not every prince was eligible as the young master of the divine general mansion. Li Hao was very likely to be the future true dragon. If he were to study in Gan Tao Palace, his relationship with the royal family could become too intimate, leading to concerns from the other 4 divine general mansions. This showed how frighteningly generous the favor he had received was. Li Hao also understood the significance of Chu Jiuyue's words and couldn't help but feel astonished. Had Emperor Yu really seen him before? Could it be that it was indeed the old man he had played Go with under the willow tree? Besides that, there seemed no other possibility. Looking into Chu Jiuyue's kind and smiling eyes, Li Hao bowed. Thank you for His Majesty's kind intentions, but I am committed to my duty and hope His Majesty will forgive me. Chu Jiuyue was slightly surprised, sizing up Li Hao carefully. Was the boy making a wild guess, or did he genuinely want to stay and defend this place? Having heard about the fierce battle between father and son and understanding the details more clearly, it seemed from Li Hao's intentions that he really wanted to sever ties with his father? To forsake such a noble surname and wealth and now to give up the opportunity to cultivate in Gan Tao Palace, was he determined to cut all ties, regardless of the cost? Looking at Li Hao, Chu Jiuyue said, "You are still young, some decisions should not be made impulsively." "Thank you for relaying the message," Li Hao replied. Knowing he could not persuade him otherwise, Chu Jiuyue did not say more. He nodded slightly and said, "Since you are determined, I will bring back your original words." Li Hao nodded. Chu Jiuyue gave him one last look without lingering, mounted his horse, and departed. When he had ridden several dozen miles out of the camp, Chu Jiuyue suddenly thought of something and murmured to himself, "It seems I left a bit early." The scent of the roasted meat in that courtyard was quite nice. His stomach growled softly, shaking his head. A good horse doesn't eat the grass behind it, and he couldn't bring himself to turn back now, so he just spurred his horse and set off. At full speed. Inside the courtyard, since Chu Jiuyue's departure, Li Hongzhuang and Li He had heard the conversation and deduced from Li Hao's responses how resolute he was. They wanted to say something but found themselves speechless, each of them sighing inwardly. To be able to give up training in Gan Tao Palace showed how strong the child's determination was. They knew their persuasion would be futile. Li Hao returned to the fire. Song Choma's gaze falling on the sword in his hand, said indifferently, "The sword is indeed fine." At these words, Li Hao gripped the hilt and gently drew the sword. With a whoosh, the sword came out of its sheath, and a dragon-like cry seemed to echo in the air, as if a streak of light flashed through the world. The sheer brilliance of the blade's edge during its unsheathing felt capable of cutting through one's vision. "It's dragon sword!" Li He exclaimed softly, his eyes showing shock and gravity. Li Hongzhuang's expression also changed slightly, not expecting Emperor Yu to bestow such a precious name sword. Chapter 193. This is none other than the foremost among the 10 great famous swords. Its reputation and status even surpass Eternal Night. After all, Eternal Night was forged for a decade but was unsheathed for only 3 years before it was sealed again. Meanwhile, the Dragon Sword passed through the hands of several powerful individuals in the Dayu dynasty, has been forged for hundreds of years, and was once the companion sword of a sword saint. Indeed, it's a fine sword. Li Hao tapped lightly on the blade and seemed to hear a low, dragon-like roar and aura of murderous intent that made him feel the chilling sharpness. After examining it a moment, Li Hao sheathed the sword and handed it back to Ren Qianqian. Ren Qianqian, hanging her own sword by her waist, took it with both hands, her eyes revealing surprise and excitement. She had heard of Dragon Source, renowned a top-tier famous sword. Her father had never even had the chance to glance at it, yet now she had touched it. "The meat is ready, let's all get ready to eat," Li Hao said with a smile. Li Hongzhuang and Li He came back to their senses, their expressions complex. At the same time, a figure appeared silently. It was Feng, who had just left. He didn't show much concern about Li Hao receiving a reward, merely glancing at Dragon Sword before pulling out a wine gourd. Ready to eat and drink. That evening, Li Hao copied a total of 124 cultivation techniques that he learned at Listening Rain Tower. The sum total of the Li family's techniques he had encountered, the ones he copied, were all advanced versions after his own deductions. The inferior versions he had learned once were now returned as superior ones. Li Hao believed he had returned them with ample interest. Besides, he wrote 3 peerless techniques after entering the Grandmaster realm. Combining the understanding of the essence of all things that came with his self-cultivation, he packed these 3 peerless techniques along with the others, a gift to the Li family. However, learning these 3 peerless techniques wouldn't be so easy. There was a prerequisite. After finishing the writing, Li Hao handed them to Song Choma, entrusting her to deliver them to the nearby city of Liangzhou to find the local Li family's stationed army and have them send the package back to the Li family. A few days later, in Qizhou City, in front of Divine General Mansion, several Jiao lions galloped over, these creatures being hefty enough to carry 7 or 8 people, and some had large bundles tied on their backs. The leading person jumped down from the Jiao lion, presented his identity token to the gate guard, and whispered a few words. Soon, the message was conveyed to Mountain and River Courtyard. In the study, Li Tiangang was scrutinizing interrogation results with a dark expression, his eyes flickering. Just then, a trusted aide came in and reported the situation outside the mansion. Li Tiangang was taken aback and suddenly slammed the table. exclaiming angrily he's returning the Li family's first favor? What does he mean? You say he sent back many cultivation techniques? Seeing the trusted aide nod, Li Tiangang's face turned ashen as he said, bring everything in, I want to see how he has returned them. Soon, the large bundles from the Jiao Lion's backs were delivered into the courtyard. Besides the bundles, there was also a letter. Yu Xian handed the letter to Li Tiangang, who casually opened the bundles and saw they were all filled with books. Li Tiangang then opened the letter and saw several lines of elegantly and neatly written words. The handwriting was clearly superior to any of theirs. The warriors, after reading through it, his expression turned sour with a wave of his hand. He fetched several books and quickly flipped through them. The cultivation techniques in the books were all written in the same handwriting, all by the same person. After finishing one book, he picked up another and continued through several. The courtyard was silent as the grave. Utterly still, Zhao and Li Fu both stood to one side, their faces filled with worry. Good, very good. After looking through several manuals, Li Tiangang's eyes were filled with anger and shock. The few cultivation techniques he casually picked up were all of superior quality, just like the letter said. Not only did the other party return the cultivation techniques, but they also returned them with interest, exceeding the amount owed. In total, 124 manuals. Moreover, there were 3 peerless techniques. Li Tiangang found it hard to believe that his son had actually learned so many cultivation techniques. Over 100. How could he have learned over 100 in just 14 short years? While practicing so many varied cultivation techniques, how could he manage to raise his cultivation level to the 15 Li realm, and even attain an epiphany to become a Tianren Grandmaster during a battle with him? At this moment, Li Tiangang's heart couldn't help but waver slightly. Such talent was unheard of. Even a demon possessing someone may not achieve this level. Could it be that he was really wrong? Was he truly too harsh on him? But soon, the memory of those cold eyes drawing a sword against him emerged in his mind, and the slight warmth in his heart quickly cooled. His talent might be peerless, but that disposition was indeed not suitable to be the Li family's true dragon. If he could draw his sword against him, what about other members of the Li family? If he entrusted the Li family to this person, he could not rest easy right now. The Dayu dynasty was in troubled times. He must steer this ship well, for any mistake could ruin 1,000 years of glory and leave him without the face to meet his forefathers. Taking a deep breath, Li Tiangang picked up the rest of the cultivation techniques and started copying them down. These techniques had names, and he gave the superior quality cultivation techniques to Yu Xian to review, and the peerless techniques were for him to check personally with Yu Xian's status and reputation. He couldn't easily access the peerless techniques. Meanwhile, Li Tiangang called several elders from Listening Rain Tower. These elders were bound to never leave the mansion for life. They were all outstanding members of the Li Muxiu's generation and cooperated with Li Muxiu on a daily basis to manage and look after Listening Rain Tower. These elders were also the living dictionaries of the Li family, their minds filled with many secrets of the family. The cultivation techniques collected in Listening Rain Tower were also reviewed by them on a regular basis. As the elders got involved, the other courtyards also received the news, and they couldn't help but feel surprised and astonished. Hurrying to mountain and river courtyard in a day and a night, the elders had reviewed all the techniques, confirming they were all cultivable without any defects. Upon hearing this news, Li Tiangang's feelings were incredibly complicated, filled with shock as well as a sense of pride and happiness, and an indescribable anger. And hearing what the elders said, he Jianlan, Li Xuanli, and others were stunned. To collect so many superior cultivation techniques in one go was unheard of even for a grandmaster. Besides dedicating their entire lives to deriving their own peerless techniques, deriving other techniques would take a considerable amount of time, and few would waste time doing such a thing. The last time so many superior cultivation techniques were collected in Listening Rain Tower was 1,000 years ago. Back then, various sects caused chaos and violated the imperial laws. The imperial court dispatched their divine general mansion to clean up and suppress the sects, conducting a bloody purge that resulted in the one-time collection of hundreds of cultivation techniques, of which also barely amounted to 100 superior ones, and now all these manuals were returned by Li Hao himself. Could it be that several four-stands realm-strong practitioners helped Li Hao derive them? What shocked them most was knowing that Li Hao had spent his years with his second uncle in Listening Rain Tower, where if he wanted to learn the techniques, he could. Being a direct descendant, there was no barrier to that. But Li Hao was just 14 years old, and he had already learned over 100 techniques from there, which seemed a bit too exaggerated. Where could he find so much time and energy? Tiangang, are you satisfied now? Li Muxiu was alerted and came rushing over, after understanding the situation. Rather than showing any joy on his face, he looked at Li Tiangang with an icy expression, hearing his words. The others also showed subtle changes in their expressions, considering the purpose of Li Hao's return of these cultivation techniques. Chapter 194. To return so many cultivation techniques all at once shows just how resolute that child is about severing his relationship with Li Tiangang as father and son. He Jianlong glanced at Li Tiangang, whose face was the color of iron, and sighed. Tiangang, after all, you are a father, don't be cross with Hao Er any longer. If our father's generation hadn't been so enlightened, you and Qingqing's marriage would have faced countless obstacles, and your child would have suffered various criticisms. Everyone says Hao Er is fortunate, but where is his fortune? Although born into a family of martial honor and draped in silks, you and Qingqing have never been with him. The child waited 14 years for your return, and even after you came back, you only spent a few days together before such a huge conflict arose. If this continues, the bond between you two as father and son will really be gone. Seventh brother. Li Xuanli's expression complicated, said, I have seen Hao Er, and he's not as bad as you describe. If that child were my son, I would be too happy to contain myself. He treats people with courtesy and measure, far from reckless. Moreover, you have seen the results of the interrogation. At this point, he seemed to think of something, his eyes subtly shifting, and he couldn't help but sigh. Seventh brother, you can't blame Hao Er for that slap Rumming received. Li Fenghua couldn't help but speak up as he said this. He glared fiercely at his wife Wang Xiangru standing beside him. Wang Xiangru returned his gaze with equal anger, showing no fear at his demeanor. Li Fenghua was so furious that he clenched his fists tightly. But in the end, he let them go, recalling his father's teachings. A man's fists are for conquering the world, not for striking his wife. For this reason, he had endured for many years. Seventh brother, even if you think Hao Er is dissolute and carefree, no matter how dissolute he is, his cultivation level is still beyond his peers. Since he has the talent and the leisure to be carefree, why must you press him so hard? Jiang Xianer said gently, hearing everyone's persuasion. Li Tiangang remained silent, his face somber. He was well aware of the words of advice. To say that he harbored no regret at this moment would not be true, but every time he thought of that child's cold face, he felt a burning rage. Especially with the return of these cultivation techniques, such a resolute attitude. He was, after all, his father, bone of his bone, flesh of his flesh. Even if he had misjudged, could that child really draw a sword against him? And to fall out with him over a mere demon beast. As for his own feelings as a father, how much did that child value them? Thinking of leaving? It's not that easy. Li Tiangang took a deep breath, his eyes cold and sharp. Although I don't know how he got these cultivation techniques, the things he owes the Li family are far from just these. Defending the frontier pass for 3 years is no easy task. And Liangzhou is about to fall into great chaos. At his words, everyone was startled, concerned about the millions of people in Liangzhou. Li Xuanli couldn't help but ask, Seventh brother? What do you mean by that? Li Tiangang gave him a look. With things having gotten to this point, there was no need to keep some classified information hidden. Moreover, he had been planning to make arrangements in the recent days. Today was merely an earlier announcement. Do you know why I ordered the withdrawal from Heavenly Gate Pass and the return of Hongzhuang? That is where our third brother and sixth brother have defended for many years. Our Li family has lost countless warriors there, and poured countless amounts of blood. If we withdraw our troops, it is equivalent to abandoning it all. Li Tiangang's eyes turned cold and stern. It's not that I don't want to defend, nor that His Majesty doesn't wish to, but we simply cannot hold it. Outside Liangzhou, demons are gathering, preparing to stir up war. Heavenly Gate Pass will bear the brunt and become the first barrier. Recently, 3 Mo rivers have appeared inside Liangzhou, all of which are of Ghost City level. One city affected by the Mo River vanished overnight, half submerged, with countless dead and injured. Now, the elders from the Wang family have gone there to try to temporarily defeat these Mo rivers. There is no hope of keeping the pass open. If they can destroy them all, then the three Mo rivers can be temporarily eradicated, preventing further spread. The demons plan to use this opportunity to break through Liangzhou and invade Daiyu. For years, the demons have long seen Daiyu as their dining table and the millions of our people as fish on the plate, ready to strike, and just the other day, the Xia family suffered a huge loss. 2 4-stands realm demon kings invaded our territory, and one of the Xia family's grandfathers has already fallen in battle. Hearing the series of shocking news he revealed, everyone was taken aback. The most core intelligence network of the Li family was in the hands of Li Tiangang, the true dragon, and they had not expected so much to have happened outside. Tiangang, if Liangzhou is so dangerous, then why are you still letting Hao Er? He Jianlan, coming back to her senses, hurriedly said. Li Tiangang said with a frosty expression. I had planned to wear down his stubborn spirit, who knew that he would be protected by 4-stands realm forces in secret, insisting on being contrary to me. With that, he looked at Li Muxiu. Li Muxiu angrily said, without 4-stands realm protection, relying on just Li He, do you really think you could keep your son safe? Don't forget that the child's talent has already been revealed. Those demons who bear a grudge against our Li family, could they just watch him grow and rise? At a critical moment when he needed protection the most, you pushed him out of Qingzhou, out of our base of operations, exposed to the harshness of the outside world. Do you really want to kill him that badly? As he released the pent-up anger in his heart, Li Tiangang said angrily, if it wasn't for your indulgence, would Hao Er have ended up where he is today, leaving home over such a trivial matter? And now, he even has the capability to sever ties with me? You! Li Muxiu was so angry his face turned red, and he trembled, speechless. Tiangang, Uncle Second meant well. You can't speak to him like that. He Jianlan's complexion changed slightly as she hurriedly said. The others looked at Li Muxiu, although this elder had spent a great deal of time in the Divine General Mansion. Because of some quirky things he had done in his youth and his conflict with their father, their opinions of him were not really favorable. Over the years, it was only He Jianlan who was relatively close to Li Muxiu and understood the temper and character of this elder. Others were unsure whether or not they should help. Persuade Li Tiangang had also reigned in his anger, realizing that his attitude just now had indeed been somewhat offensive. He took a deep breath, looked towards his 5th brother, Li Xianli, and said in a deep voice, 5th brother, I brought up this matter today because I plan to find you in a few days. Regarding Liangzhou, I intend to have you stationed there to explore the situation. When the demons launch a major attack, I will personally go there to lead the army. Li Xianli nodded, responding earnestly, no problem, leave it to me. I've been recuperating from my injuries these past years, and I'm almost fully recovered now. I should have been the one to go to that battle in northern Yin. Li Tiangang shook his head. Why should we bother with such distinctions between us? Upon hearing this, Li Xianli's eyes reddened slightly, but he restrained himself and said no more. Li Fenghua said, 7th brother, if there's anything you need, just call on me. 8th brother, you just need to ensure Changzhou is safe. That place was reclaimed by Ziyajui at the cost of his life. We cannot afford to lose it, Li Tiangang said gravely. Li Fenghua nodded slightly. He understood this point well, which was why he had been diligently defending Changzhou these past years, seldom returning to the Divine General Mansion. Because of this, he had neglected the discipline and companionship of his children, resulting in both children being spoiled without limits by his wife. Upon returning this time, he found it exceedingly difficult to discipline them. Moreover, his wife relied on her family background from the Wang family and was not afraid of him because she had people in her maternal home. Therefore, witnessing the great conflict between Li Tiangang and Li Hao, he felt a deep empathy in his heart, unconsciously siding with Li Tiangang a bit more, sensing the helplessness of a father in Li Tiangang's heart. In that case, 5th brother, get ready these next few days and set off. The sooner you go and understand this situation, the better. You don't have to worry about Heavenly Gate Pass, Li Tiangang said. Li Xianli appeared startled. What about Hao Er? He has the protection of the 4-stands realm. If the situation turns sour, he will naturally return unless he truly wishes to throw his life away. Li Tiangang said coldly. Li Xianli's expression changed slightly, but he just sighed softly in his heart and remained silent. Elders, take these cultivation techniques to Listening Rain Tower, Li Tiangang said to the several elders, bowing slightly as a gesture. The elders all nodded lightly. They had no intention of meddling in the family affairs of Li Tiangang, having always kept to their duties over the years. Then these 3 unparalleled techniques. An elder hesitated. Li Tiangong's expression darkened slightly as he remembered the contents of that letter. What about these unparalleled techniques? Asked he. Jianlan, puzzled. The elder, with a gentle demeanor, said, Madam. It seems that young Master Li Hao once mentioned that if these 3 unparalleled techniques are to be included, we must ensure that these cultivation techniques are not practiced by Li Chiefeng before he would allow gifting the unparalleled techniques to us. The group was taken aback and looked at each other in astonishment, not expecting the child to still keep this in mind. However, considering that it was over this matter that the great father-son conflict erupted, it was normal for the other party to remember it deeply. Moreover, there is another option, which is that he may also cultivate these unparalleled techniques, but he cannot inherit the true dragon position of the Li family. Another elder spoke up. He Jianlan turned towards Li Tiangang, is that true? Li Tiangang nodded with a stern face. The crowd could not help but exchange glances. It was fortunate that Lu Yurong was not present, or she would have burst into a rage upon hearing this. This child, he sure knows how to calculate. He Jianlan couldn't help but reveal a slight smile. Li Tiangang glanced at her and scoffed. Using the 3 unparalleled techniques to blackmail us is simply a wild fantasy. His scheming is deep, nothing like a child. He is clearly clever and shrewd. How come in your mouth it turns into being scheming and deep? Li Muxiu couldn't hold back and spoke up again. Li Tiangong's brow furrowed and he remained silent. Li Xianli considered and said, Hao's action is not meant as a threat. The child has simply employed a tactic of open stratagem. If we let Qianfeng cultivate it and he inherits the true dragon position, then with the unparalleled technique originating from him, who knows if he's hidden half a move in it. In the future, if Li Qiefeng uses these unparalleled techniques to battle him, then the true dragon would crumble instantly before Hao. Even if Qianfeng were to learn it, he wouldn't have the true dragon's authority, so it seems that once Qianfeng learns these techniques, he would be completely at Hao's mercy for the rest of his life. What about the others? Wang Xiangru asked, unable to help herself from changing her expression. She had been thinking of letting her 2 children learn them as well. Li Xianli gave her a glance and spoke softly. For others, the gap with Hao is so vast that whether they learn it or not, it makes little difference. Upon hearing this, Wang Xiangru's face changed, feeling a sense of embarrassment for asking such a question, but she had to admit that she couldn't refute what had been said, at least not right now, among the next generation. Only that young lord directly taught by the Buddha holds some hope of catching up with Li Hao in the future. For the rest, facing Li Hao, even if the unparalleled techniques had no flaws, they would be no match in the face of such an enormous difference in realms. However, she couldn't help feeling a bit indignant deep down. There's a long road ahead, and being 1 step ahead doesn't mean you will be ahead forever. Once reaching a certain height, there will naturally be a stagnation at the bottleneck, a stagnation that could last decades. By then, the advantage of a few years that exists now would be nullified, which is hardly anything significant. Her 2 children might not stand out too much, but with the foundation of the Wang and Li families behind them, that was something the child couldn't compare with, and in the future they might have the opportunity to compete with him. Thinking this, she felt slightly better, but she now viewed Li Xianli with less favor, snorting coldly in her heart. Since that's the case, I think we should include them after all. In the end, the advantages outweigh the disadvantages. As for whether to practice them or not, that will be for Qiefeng to decide. If he chooses to cultivate them, he's willing to accept being under Hao's foot. If not, he will have to cultivate other peerless techniques. Indeed, with many peerless techniques available in Listening Rain Tower, as long as one masters another to perfection, mastering one can defeat many. There's no significant difference, they concluded after a short discussion. Seeing this, Li Tiangang also felt this way and said nothing more. Chapter 195. After the elders took away the cultivation techniques, Li Tiangang sent everyone out of the courtyard, then returned to his study to pick up the interrogation report he had been reading earlier. This was his 2nd time reading it. He just wanted to check for any oversights. Soon, he finished reading it for the 2nd time. Li Tiangang fell silent, standing in place as he gazed at a martial training ground in the courtyard. There stood a target made of dragon tendon grass, but it was tattered and covered with snow. Whiz! An arrow fiercely struck the center of the dragon tendon grass target, its tail quivering slightly. How about that? I told you I could hit it. The child jumped up and down on the spot, shouting excitedly, haha, not bad, with more practice you might even surpass your 2nd brother from back then. A tall, sword-wearing youth said with a smile, you've already surpassed him. Little 7th's talent in archery is far greater than mine. Another slim-faced young man chuckled, reaching out to tousle the head of the child, who was beaming with joy. Don't flatter me, your arrow exploded the head of a great demon 30 li away. The entire army saw it. The sword-wearing youth looked on admiringly. The slim-faced young man smiled without a word, turning to the child and saying, last time you said you wanted a saber of your own. What is this? He brought out something from behind his back, holding in his palm a curved blade the length of a dagger. The child's eyes shone brightly, taking it over with excitement. Second brother, did you buy this? It's made from the fangs and scales of a giant serpent your second brother hunted. He had it forged especially for you. The sword-wearing youth said enviously, thank you, second brother. The child was overjoyed, holding the curved blade in his hand, fondling it lovingly. In another part of the courtyard, the wail of a child suddenly rose, powerful and vigorous. Both young men turned to look, laughing. Little Ninth has wet the bed again. They walked towards that direction, and the child quickly followed, fading into the distance until their figures disappeared. The memories of the past once again fell silent before his eyes. The warm sunlight of those spring days was gone, leaving only the courtyard blanketed in falling snow. The once new dragon tendon grass target had become old and worn. The sounds of laughter were long gone. The target remained, but the one who shot at it never returned. Li Tiangang's palm clenched slightly. He took a deep breath, then turned and walked out of mountain and river courtyard with a stern face. Yu Xian and Li Fu wanted to follow, but he raised his hand to stop them. Without a word, he walked away, his figure disappearing outside the courtyard among the falling snowflakes. Before long, Li Tiangang arrived at Shuhua courtyard. As he pushed open the door, the trusted aide at the entrance was taken aback upon seeing Li Tiangang, showing a hint of trepidation, and quickly saluted. Li Tiangang entered the courtyard with his hands clasped behind his back and soon saw a young figure practicing swordsmanship amidst the whistling sound of the sword wind. He glanced over, and the youth also noticed him, stopping his sword to look over. Though his gaze was cold with a hint of anger, without saying a word, Li Tiangang withdrew his gaze and headed directly to a pavilion nearby. There, a beautiful woman with a graceful figure, dressed in a green crossed-collar long dress, was leaning against the railing, gazing at the young man practicing his sword in the courtyard. Li Tiangang approached the pavilion from the side, but the expression of the beautiful woman remained largely unchanged, still looking at the young man, not turning around. Though her lips tightened slightly, revealing her inner unrest, the pavilion was silent for a moment. After a while, Li Tiangang spoke first. Second sister-in-law, the interrogation results have been delivered to my hands, and you've confirmed them with your personal seal. Do you have anything else to say? Li Rong remained motionless for a bit, then slowly said, what do you expect me to say? Li Tiangang, should I kneel before you to apologize? Or should I kneel before your son and let him kill me and my child? As she spoke, she slowly turned around, her dark eyes fixed on Li Tiangang. Li Tiangang was silent for a moment before saying, since the second sister-in-law admits to the interrogation results without denial, then I must act according to the law. Such righteousness in acting according to the law. Li Yurong's eyes suddenly filled with passionate emotion, full of resentment and bitterness. You used the thousand-spindle soul goose skill to coerce a confession. If I hadn't spoken, I might have died in that prison. Li Tiangang, oh, Li Tiangang, you are truly ruthless to your own son, and to us, a widow and orphan. How can you face your deceased elder brother? Li Tiangang watched the anger and hatred on her face, falling silent once more. Once upon a time, when she and his second brother were always seen together, every time she saw him she would smile gently like a well-bred lady, bringing him little treats. And when she went to the market, she never forget to bring him a gift. They were all young then, with carefree faces full of youthful exuberance, as if their hearts were unable to conceal any worries. But now, as they looked into each other's eyes, they were unable to peer into the depths of each other's hearts. Times have changed, and nothing remains the same. Second sister-in-law, according to national law, you will be stripped of your first-class ladyship and demoted to the status of a commoner. Li Tiangang took a deep breath and continued in a low voice, according to family law, since you tried to harm a legitimate heir of the family, you should be exiled or executed, but in consideration of my second brother's past merits, from now on you will stay in Shuhua courtyard indefinitely. With the Li family's support, you can still ensure a life of wealth and honor. What wealth and honor? Li Rong glared at him with eyes full of resentment. Why was Feng Ping so foolish and naive? His talent was no less than yours. Li Tiangang and Chef Feng had divine blood in his veins. When he married me, he had already reached the immortal level. Yet, he foolishly did such a stupid thing, taking a sword for you, going to war with grievous wounds, and ending up with no remains to be found. Chapter 196. As she spoke, she clenched her teeth, her eyes filled with not just hatred but also crimson tears. The year he died, Che Feng had just been born. He was fatherless from the moment he was born. Li Tiangang's chest heaved slightly as he fell silent, stone-like. If not for you, how would he have died? If he hadn't died after the death of Little Nine, that true dragon position would have been his. If he were still alive, how could he have allowed you to bully a widow and orphan like us? If he were still alive, why would I have had to go to such lengths to poison your monstrous son? All of this, it's all your fault. Lu Yurong's emotions crumbled, erupting into angry tears and roars. Outside the courtyard, a youthful figure suddenly appeared, standing between Lu Yurong and Li Tiangang, his eyes filled with cold frost as he stared at the burly man before him. I will bear the consequences for my mother's actions. You shall not punish her. Li Qianfeng said coldly. Li Tiangang looked into those cold eyes and suddenly felt a sting in his heart, feeling as if he had seen these eyes somewhere recently. By seniority, the one before him was his own nephew who ought to address him as uncle. But at this moment, the youth's eyes contained nothing but the chill of a stranger, even hostility. Lu Yurong, hearing Li Qianfeng's words, was so frightened that she hurriedly pushed him away. Don't interfere, stay back, this is none of your business, go away. Li Tiangang had seen that Lu Yurong's confession was not just due to the torture of interrogation, but because she did not want to drag her son back into this, as no one in the house believed she was innocent now. Her stubbornness was futile. Li Tiangang, you can imprison me, but Qianfeng is innocent. He is still young and knows nothing. Lu Yurong glared at Li Tiangang and asserted. Li Tiangang spoke slowly. I will only deal justly. If Qianfeng has done no wrong, I won't interfere, as long as he doesn't violate the laws or the family rules henceforth. Seeing him say this, Lu Yurong's heart settled down, her shoulders began to shake, and she began to cry and laugh. Feng Ping, you have a good brother. Her words were laced with sarcasm and sorrow. Li Tiangang fell silent, offering no explanations, just looking deeply at her and the young man before him. He slowly said, Xie Feng, the result of the recent struggle for the true dragon does not count. As I have already reported to our ancestors, you and Hao Er can still compete. I've given Hao Er 3 years and you will have the same. If you can defeat Hao Er in 3 years, the true dragon position is yours. Li Qianfeng trembled, gazing at him. Is that true? Li Tiangang did not repeat himself. The young man before him did not even care to call him uncle, showing the thinness of their emotional connection. He no longer held any enthusiasm, however. Li Yurong knew Li Tiangang's temperament well and knew his words were genuine. She couldn't help but laugh, saying, Li Tiangang, oh Li Tiangang, since father passed, you really haven't changed a bit over the years. It was your son who won. That monster, who could beat him? You could have simply let your slight bias give him the true dragon position. Why go through all this trouble? The men of the Li family, each and every one, have heads as thick as poplar wood, incomprehensibly dull. Li Tiangang gave her a glance, his emotions already leveled. Dispassionately he said, perhaps, but the people of Dayu need such poplar-headed leaders. The scholars of the Lu family have sharp minds, but what solid work have you done over the years? Seizing opportunities for profiteering, relying on the Li family's protection for tax evasion, do you really think I don't know about it? Li Yurong was taken aback, her face instantly turned pale. If you don't want others to know, don't do it yourself. Li Tiangang turned and walked away, leaving Shuhua courtyard. The captain of the personal guards waiting outside approached, ready to receive orders. Seal off the courtyard, she must not take a single step outside. Li Tiangang dropped these words and left straightaway. In Piaoxua courtyard, after returning to the courtyard, Li Xuanli had his wife Gao Qingqing prepare gifts and garments, planning to leave for Liangzhou as soon as possible. Considering the urgency of military matters and the hidden threat of demons in Liangzhou, he had no intention of staying home any longer. Father, are you going to Liangzhou to subdue demons? 3 figures came into the hall, and Li Wushuang, her eyes slightly shining, asked, Li Xuanli looked at the 3, his face breaking into a smile. He beckoned them closer, and once they approached, he said warmly, while I'm away, you must listen to your mother and not be naughty, understand? Father, are you going to Heavenly Gate Pass to stand guard with him? Li Wushuang quickly asked. Li Yun and Li Jining also watched Li Xuanli intently. Heavenly Gate Pass? Li Xuanli was taken aback and realized whom his daughter was referring to. His expression shifted slightly as he sighed. I'm headed for the Li family military camp in Liangzhou. Heavenly Gate Pass is a perilous spot at the frontier pass and has already been evacuated. I don't know when that child will return or if he truly intends to stay there for 3 years. If the demons invade, that place could be extremely dangerous. Speaking of this, worry was plainly etched on his face. Li Wuxuang and her siblings were taken aback, their expressions changing. Father, if Liangzhou is in danger, should you not inform him? Li Wuxuang frowned and spoke. Li Xuanli nodded slightly. After I arrive in Liangzhou, I will send a military report to caution him to be more vigilant. It would be best if he could return directly. That child is indeed stubborn. What is there between father and son that can't be reconciled? Sigh. Gao Qingqing glanced at him. Don't just talk the talk. Some matters are best left alone. You should take care of yourself once you're in Liangzhou. If you really want to write to that child, then also tell him that Fifth Lady has prepared his favorite childhood snack, the tender beef and jade pastry, for him to enjoy when he gets back. Chapter 197. Li Xuanli nodded slightly and couldn't help but gently clasp his wife's palm. Then he said to the three of them, now that the demons in the world are in turmoil, it's no longer as stable as in the past. You all need to cultivate as quickly as possible. Don't strut around outside just because you have some abilities, understand? Li Wuxuang said, Dad, I want to go to Liangzhou too. I'll go as well, Li Yun hurriedly added. Li Jining didn't speak but gazed at his father with large, expectant eyes. Li Xuanli rolled his eyes, feeling that his words had fallen on deaf ears, and said irritably, I don't have the energy to look after you. Don't add to my troubles. Dad, they might not be capable, but I can go, he said. Li Wuxuang decisively betrayed her younger siblings and argued, I also need to experience the mortal world after descending the mountain. Only during the contention for the true dragon did I realize how vast the gap between me and them was. I need to go and slay demons for my cultivation. Li Yun and Li Jining both looked at their eldest sister. Didn't they agree to come together and ask their father to let them travel with him? How could she betray them like this? Both siblings looked at her somewhat annoyed, feeling like they were just a foil for their elder sister. Li Xuanli smiled bitterly at his daughter's words. Don't compare yourself with them. One of them is more exaggerated than your Uncle Nine, and the other is a direct disciple of the Buddha. It's a feat that you have cultivation level at your age. You already stand out among your peers, ranking within the top 30 on the Qiankuan list. I'm already very proud of you, he said. It's still not enough. I only want to be number one. Li Wuxuang said determinedly, if I relax like this, sooner or later, I won't even be able to see their heels. Seeing her so stubborn, Li Xuanli thought for a moment and relented. All right, with your cultivation level, it would be good for you to go to the army to gain some experience. Dad. Li Yun and his siblings quickly interjected. Don't even think about it. Dad, you're being partial. Yes, I am being partial. If you don't behave, I'll spank you, believe it or not. Liangzhou Heavenly Gate Pass. Inside the small fenced yard of the pass, with the firewood extinguished, Li Hao watched as Song Choma and Feng had eaten their fill. He chuckled, patted his buttocks, stood up and said, the weather is nice today. Should we go out for a walk and kill some demons? Surprised, Song Choma said, you've just obtained the sword manual. Aren't you going to practice swordsmanship first? Practicing swordsmanship, the most progress is made during real combat. Li Hao laughed. I think you just want to use my help to kill more demons. Song Choma exposed him without any irritation but didn't get angry. It's just to help digest the food. Li Hao said with a smile, that's true. I'm getting bored of staying here too. I'll accompany you for a walk. Song Choma stood up and said. Feng Bopping said calmly, she's enough company for you. I won't go. Li Hao knew that the old master wanted to stay behind to guard the pass for him. He curbed his smile and nodded slightly, then took the dragon sword from Ren Qianqian's hands. Can I go too? Ren Qianqian quickly asked. You're still too weak. Cultivate well here. When it's time to inherit the divine soul, will you take the path offered by your father's side? Or will you go to the martial temple? Li Hao asked. Ren Qianqian immediately answered, the martial temple. The place my father has chosen for me is also the martial temple. All right, once you break through, I'll have Choma send you to the martial temple, but you have to hurry. She's only staying for half a year, Li Hao said with a smile. Hearing this, Ren Qianqian knew that her cultivation level was too low and that she couldn't even keep up with Li Hao's pace. Li Hao carried the sword and turned to leave. A white shadow sprang out, and the little white fox scurried up his trouser leg and onto his shoulder as light as a feather. Seeing its clingy demeanor, Li Hao rubbed its little head and didn't drive it away. He casually walked out of the camp, carrying the sword and releasing his divine soul. Centering on the Heavenly Gate Pass, he patrolled around. It wasn't long before Li Hao spotted some lurking demons 40 li away. With Song Choma close by to cover, his life was secured, so Li Hao had no worries about attacks from demons of the Four Stands realm. He directly moved forward with his sword to kill them. With a whoosh, the dragon sword was unsheathed. Across 20 li, the flying sword shot out like a rainbow, cutting down several demons lurking in the forest. The sword light was as white as snow, like a howling silver dragon, slicing through the demons' bodies as easily as tofu, obliterating their divine souls as well. These demons didn't even have the chance to see what happened. Li Hao traveled by wind, freely flying in the sky, his senses first projected towards Dragon Pass Road. He used his power to control objects to fling the demon corpses that littered the road into the wilderness and the bushes outside the road. This main road leading to the pass had been occupied by demons before Li Hao's arrival. After he had passed by and cleared them, he noticed several demons had settled in the middle of the road, most likely accompanying others before settling down on the spot. Li Hao didn't hold back and sent out his sword light, directly killing the demons and flinging their bodies away. He wanted these demons to know that this was a road for humans, not a path for demons to tread. After dealing with those demons, Li Hao flew towards the wilderness nearby, encountering demons of all sizes along the way. He killed them effortlessly. To him, demons of either the divine travel realm or the 15 Li realm were no match at all. As for demons of the heavenly human realm, who were considered little demon kings reigning over their territories, they stood no chance against the penetration of the dragon sword treasured sword. Their rough hides and flesh were torn apart like dry weeds under the sword blade. Li Hao flew over hills and forests, leaving behind a vast expanse of demon corpses on the ground. He wanted to clear out all the nearby demons, to return this place to its state 1,000 years ago, making it a forbidden zone for demons. Song Choma followed Li Hao around, barely getting a chance to take action herself. Chapter 198. She had long seen that Li Hao only wanted her to accompany him as a precaution against a surprise attack from the great demon king, as he could easily slay any other demons apart from controlling his flying sword. When Li Hao encountered demons around the 15 Li realm, he would mostly use his fishing line and hook to kill them, while incidentally accumulating fishing experience. Several days passed by. Within 100 Li of Heavenly Gate Pass, not a single demon could be seen anymore, all having been slain. Li Hao's fishing experience had also reached 20,000 points, still 80,000 short of the 100,000 threshold. Li Hao began to clear areas farther away. Meanwhile, 1,000 li away from Heavenly Gate Pass, at the peak of a huge mountain surrounded by other peaks, there was a Taoist temple. Amid the temple, mist curled around and morning bells chimed. The vast temple grounds were filled with numerous figures in cultivation, dressed in simple Taoist robes with hair coiled up, resembling a gathering of immortals. But upon closer inspection, one could see various types of horns on their heads or scales protruding, and their robes had holes for tails of all shapes to extend through. Their joined hands uttered chants, some slender like human hands, others gnarled and scaly like claws. This was Longshan Taoist temple. In front of the devout crowd of demons, atop a dais, a mummified corpse in a Taoist robe, its face mottled red and blue, was preaching. Spirits swirled around it, and insects occasionally crawled out from its robe, wriggling into its ears or nostrils and back into its body. This mummified corpse was the three immortal great demons who had fled back from outside Heavenly Gate Pass in a sorry state several days ago. The peacock, bull demon, and the giant frog had all met their end at Heavenly Gate Pass, only it had escaped. Such a tremendous loss was not trivial for Longshan Taoist Temple. In the back mountains of the temple, an old man in worn Taoist robes quietly sat before a waterfall. Suddenly, his eyes opened, revealing a cold light at their depths as he spoke impassively. "Your Excellency has come here. What guidance do you seek?" Behind him, a figure slowly emerged out of thin air, a seductive woman in a bright red dress, but with floral patterns on half her face, her eyes bewitching. She chuckled, "Dragon Master, I hear that several of your disciples have fallen at Heavenly Gate Pass. What a pity. Have you come here looking for a beating?" The old Taoist's eyes were icy cold. "I'm just feeling sorry for you. Why vent your anger on me?" The seductive woman put on an innocently weak facade, blinking as she said, "I came to ask, what do you think of the earlier proposal? Will you join our army? This is a rare opportunity." The old Taoist furrowed his brows, falling into silence. "What are you still worried about? The real person from Gan Tao Palace doesn't dare to set foot outside." The seductive woman spoke softly. "Otherwise, that imperial holy city would succumb in an instant, turn to ashes. This is a once-in-a-millennium chance. Those human race characters expanded recklessly in the past, driving us out of our homes, forcing us to live on the edges of the great wilderness heaven. We should have killed our way back long ago." As she spoke, a hint of murder surfaced on her seductive face. The old Taoist slowly said, "If we are to attack Liangzhou, from which direction do you plan to strike? We were hoping that you would work with us and march right through this Heavenly Gate Pass." The seductive woman's expression softened into a gentle allure, but we received some intelligence a few days ago. The Li family of Chizhou City has met with great trouble. That talented prodigy, once hailed as a millennium's first of Dayu, has left home and been exiled here, with 4 Stan's realm secretly protecting him. I believe you have already encountered him. So, to continue attacking from Heavenly Gate Pass would mean an early confrontation with the 4 Stan's realm. The losses would be too great, somewhat pointless. We have already changed our route. Since this pass has become a tough nut to crack, let's bypass it for now. After we flatten Liangzhou, this small pass will be of no significance, then we can turn back and enjoy the taste of those human race elders. Chapter 199. The winter snow fluttered down, cloaking the world in a shimmering silver mantle. Gusts of cold wind howled through the mountain pass. Inside a small fenced courtyard, Ren Qianqian practiced her swordsmanship in the snow. The blade sang through the air. Whipping up the falling snow around her, she moved with the agility and grace of a butterfly, her sword strokes lithe. The technique is just a facade. You need to comprehend the trajectory, the rhythm, and the true essence of the sword. Beside her, Li Hao squatted on the snowy ground, intently building a snowman. He patted and shaped it with his hands, occasionally clipping and trimming, and every now and then he glanced up at the practicing girl to give her a few pointers. Upon hearing this, Ren Qianqian paused, puzzled. The trajectory of the sword? Li Hao nodded, noticing that his snowman lacked arms made of branches. He immediately stood up, bent down, and picked up a branch from outside the woodshed. Look, like this. He shook the branch gently, and the snow clinging to it fell off. Then, with a swift motion, he flicked the branch, catching all the falling snowflakes back onto it, miraculously restoring it to its original snow-covered state. Ren Qianqian watched, stunned. Your sword should interact with the environment around you. That's how you achieve precision and sharpness, Li Hao explained. He returned to the snowman, shook off the snow from the branch again, and then inserted it as a twiggy arm on the snowman. Deep in thought, Ren Qianqian looked at the sword in her hand and, after a moment, resumed her practice. In the past few days, aside from the occasional pointers from Li Hao, Li Hongzhuang and Song Choma also took the time to guide her, but like Li Hao, their guidance never focused merely on sword techniques but delved deeper, speaking from a grandmaster's perspective about their understanding of the way of the sword. Such guidance had its pros and cons. The downside was that their words were enigmatic and tough to decipher, but the upside was, if one was perceptive enough, grasping their meaning could lead to rapid advances in swordsmanship. Harnessing sword intent to control the sword was akin to getting a head start on pursuing one's own grandmaster path. Ren Qianqian continued practicing her swordsmanship, and Li Hao continued building his second snowman. Beyond the pass, suddenly, an old horse galloped in. The red blood horse sped into the pass and came to a stop outside the small courtyard. Li Hongzhuang, who was tending the stove in the kitchen, sensed something amiss and darted out of the courtyard as swift as an arrow. You're from the Xian camp of Liangzhou? Seeing the silver insignia on the veteran soldier's armor, Li Hongzhuang's eyes lit up. Has fifth brother arrived in Liangzhou? Has he come to reinforce us? The old soldier dismounted quickly, bowed respectfully, and handed over a military report. The general has just reached Liangzhou and sent me to deliver this report to the commander. Li Hongzhuang reached out to take it and swiftly scanned through its contents. Soon, her expression changed subtly, her eyes gaining a sharp, frosty edge. These demons really dare to scheme against Liangzhou. Clasping the report closed, she took a deep breath and said to the old soldier, "It's a long journey. Do you want to come in and rest for a bit?" "No, the general is awaiting my return with a message. Do you have news for me to carry back, Commander?" The old man spoke respectfully, his mind also filled with wonder. He had galloped all the way from the frontier, witnessing numerous demon corpses along the way, and even Kanjia City, once majestic, had been destroyed by demons as the rumor said. He had expected to find a desolate military camp, yet here he was, in a cozy, fenced courtyard. A reply. Li Hongzhuang thought about how the military report, aside from detailing intelligence on demon activity, also included a letter full of familial concern. It warned her to be wary of demons, inquired about her well-being, and urged her to take good care of Hao Er and to retreat at any time. The words were few, but she could feel her fifth brother's warm care. Just a moment. Li Hongzhuang turned back into the courtyard, asked Li Hao for writing materials, swiftly penned a letter, and handed it to the waiting old soldier in the snowy courtyard outside. The old soldier tucked the rolled-up letter into his sleeve, mounted his horse, bid farewell to Li Hongzhuang, and galloped away. After the soldier departed, Li Hongzhuang called for Li Hao and handed him the military report. Fifth brother says that demons on the outskirts of Liangzhou are stirring and some fortresses have already been infiltrated. These demons plan to coordinate internal and external attacks with the intention of swallowing Liangzhou. He's especially come to take command, she relayed to Li Hao. Li Hongzhuang looked at Li Hao. Our heavenly gate pass may face a major demon invasion soon. Li Hao picked up the report to read and, noticing the concern from his fifth uncle mixed within, his mind flashed back to the impression left during a family dinner when they exchanged pleasantries. He gathered his thoughts and responded to Li Hongzhuang. When the enemy comes, we'll block them. When floods threaten, we'll build dams. If demons come, we'll just fire up the cauldron. Li Hongzhuang gave a wry smile but then thought that with two beings from the Four Stands realm guarding them, there was no need to panic. If they really encountered trouble, a timely retreat was still manageable. However, it was uncertain when the demons would invade. After storing the military report, Li Hao invited everyone to enjoy lunch. Following the snowfall, the pass had an abundance of water resources. Li Hongzhuang's formerly greasy, coiled hair had been loosened in the absence of demon attacks over the last few days and, after being combed and washed, flowed like silk, smooth as ink, cascading down her back. Her once blood-stained armor had been cleansed and, while still donned for readiness, her flowing hair lent her a freshness, making her appear like a female general walking out of a painting. Li Hao made several large wooden tubs, boiled snow into water at night, and created a homemade hot spring. Soaking in the tub, they would eat barbecued meat, drink wine, and chat leisurely with Elder Fenj. It was indeed a delightful life. The place at the pass seemed to have turned into a holiday retreat. Despite the heavy snow painting the world a bleak and cold white, they were untroubled, sheltered from the winds and snow. In the days that followed, Li Hao spent his days hunting with Song Choma, targeting demons, and nights resting back at the small courtyard, maintaining a regular routine. Chapter 200. The demons he had hunted had given him a significant amount of painting experience, and he was about to level up to the 6th stage during the hunting process. His fishing experience was also slowly increasing, gradually stretching towards the bottleneck of the 6th stage. Regrettably, the nearby 3 immortal demons seemed to have heard some news and had all evacuated from the vicinity of Heavenly Gate Pass. Li Hao found several caves which reeked pungently with the scent of the 3 immortal demons, but from the questioning of the lesser demons captured nearby, he learned that the great demons inside had already left days ago. Li Hao casually collapsed these caves and left subtle fish marks as signs, so if any demons passed by, he could come and investigate next time. Days went by, one after another. As Li Hao hunted demons, his grandmaster state of mind was also slowly being perfected. Initially, he was proud and ambitious, addressing all creatures in the world as Grandmaster. This was much harder than the usual path to becoming a Grandmaster. The door to the heavens he had kicked open revealed a world far broader than he had imagined. What are all things? What is the origin of all things? Li Hao kept pondering this question. Mountains and rivers, fish and insects, wild animals, and so on, they are all things, but there are too many of them if one were to learn from each individually. Even 100,000 years of life would not be enough for a regular person to learn it all. Li Hao had the insight of the 6th stage of the physical body path. He could comprehend the state of mind of all things at a glance. And mastering them one by one was not difficult, but what Li Hao wanted was not diversity but unity. He wanted to merge the state of mind of all things into one, which was a problem he created for himself and only he could solve. In the process of hunting everywhere, Li Hao and Song Choma were also traveling the mountains and rivers beyond this pass. From being enlightened about oneself to glimpsing the universe, Li Hao saw the bushes and flowers, saw the bright moon and the streams. He saw the snow melting under the sunlight and the persevering new leaves under the heavy snow. All things have a force, but what is the commonality of this force? Snow can freeze all things, yet a ray of sunlight can penetrate it. New leaves are fragile, but snow cannot kill them. Birds and beasts, though able to walk and destroy great trees, shiver in the snow and hastily return to their nests after seeking food. Therefore, what is the force of all things? A cold wind blew, brushing across his face. As Li Hao gazed at the distant mountains and the nearby woods, he seemed to touch upon something in his heart, but it slipped away in an instant as the weather gradually turned to winter. The days with snow became more frequent. Today, having hunted 2 demons from the 15 Li realm, Li Hao returned with Song Choma. The number of demons in the wilderness outside this pass still far exceeded that within the region outside the small fenced courtyard. Li Hao had also casually built a few houses. Now that no demons were attacking, these houses could be built without worrying that they would be destroyed immediately. Li Hongzhuang asked, "Are you planning on rebuilding the original city again?" Li Hao just smiled. If the demons keep staying away, then it's not impossible. Li Hongzhuang seemed thoughtful. In those days, she occasionally left the camp to search for traces of demons outside, but the nearby demons had all been cleared out by Li Hao, and she ventured to the outskirts of Wan Shan's Demon King territory without daring to go deeper. The number of demons in that area seemed to have decreased a lot, with no signs of a large demon army assembling. This was somewhat inconsistent with the military reports passed on by her fifth brother. However, she didn't doubt her brother's intelligence. Instead, she couldn't help but think, could it be that these demons, because of the two four-stands realm powerhouses stationed at Heavenly Gate Pass, planned to take a detour? This speculation couldn't be confirmed, and she could only plan to wait and see. In a while. If there's still no activity outside the Heavenly Gate Pass, she would send a letter to inform her fifth brother to be extra cautious in other areas. Every once in a while, Song Choma would go to nearby cities to purchase supplies, vegetables, noodles, seasonings for food and drink, as well as the painting paper Li Hao needed. On this day, upon returning, Song Choma brought back some extra treats for Li Hao. A set of chess strategies and 2 famous paintings. These were what Li Hao had asked Song Choma to help him find. Li Hao was overjoyed when he received the chess strategies and paintings, and he immediately added them to his panel. The chess strategy was New Studies of Chess. It was a guide that helped beginners to quickly learn the game. After pondering, Li Hao integrated it into his control path, and the corresponding trait immediately emerged. New Studies of Chess, increase in control speed by 20. Compared to other chess strategies, the trait from this one seemed ordinary, not as exaggerated as something like 7-star lighting, but like the myriad attributes once equipped, it was always active, a passive skill. It did not require an extra expenditure of Li Hao's power, had no side effects, and offered a percentage-based permanent increase. In the future, when his control speed reaches even higher levels, this 20 increase will be even more significant. As for the 2 famous paintings, Li Hao couldn't determine what special attributes they would bring, so he could only try integrating them one by one into his physical body path and control path. One of the paintings was Shrimp in the Clear Spring. Incorporated into the physical body path, it brought the trait 20 affinity to water. Li Hao did not understand what this trait meant, but he could feel an especially warm connection when he touched snowflakes. He also felt more comfortable when soaking in hot springs. If one were to cultivate a cold ice-related cultivation technique, it seemed to have an enhancing effect. Beyond that, it was presently useless. The other painting, when embedded into the control path, was Yellow Bird Catching Insects painting, depicting a classic anecdote where the praying mantis stalks the cicada, unaware of the oriole behind. The trait it imparted was quite unique. When an attack remains unrevealed, there is a 1 chance for a fatal effect. This effect seemed similar to Hidden Bow, concealing the killing move, which could double the attack power when unrevealed.